This week in games, we break down the top 10 video games of the year. This is the Two Penny Gamescast. What's poppin', players? Welcome back to the Two Penny Gamescast, episode 180 in a brand new set. I am your host, Tavin Bothel, here with my good friend and co-host. Say hello to the people, Connor Elliott.
This is a whole new dimension for me. It's pretty cool, isn't it?
It's cool, man.
It's a pain in the ass to set up.
Oh, dude, it takes so much time.
Hey, you got to spend money to make money. You got to spend time to do the time.
Right? We're in a new set, audio listeners, so make sure you go check out the YouTube video. Remember, this is the Two Penny Gamescast, but we're going to get into that in just a little bit. But first, we got to go and bring on friend of the show, Phil Shoemaker. Say hello to the people.
Mr. Beast!
No, what's up? It's me. I'm Phil.
He's Phil. He's still here. We got him. He's right here in the middle, in between us and so forth. Y'all can see him. We can see each other. It's all so fucking glorious.
You know what the best part is?
Yes.
I just found this out. Claps are now audible through the mics, because I do it all the time, and it always felt like a futile gesture because no one can hear it.
One of these mics is picking it up.
Let me just say, I could not hear a single clap.
Damn it.
When you said that claps were audible, I was like, are they?
No, it's that Discord suppression. Real life, they're going to get picked up,
Good. Okay, that's all. Sorry, Phil, you're going to miss out on
that. That makes sense, because
no.
I was always the one recording over Discord, and my clap's usually pretty audible when I did it, but you clap a lot more than I do, so this will be a good time. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a brand new year. January 1st, 2024. You're seeing this on the 2nd because, of course, this is the Two Penny Gamescast. Each week, me and Connor come to you with the new news you need to know concerning the video game industry. We each come to you with two topics, two pennies, if you will, and we give you our 2 cents on them. You can find this show every week, Tuesday, 8 a.m. Central Time, youtube.com/@2pennygames, and mainstream podcast services of your choice. You can also find us over on the Twitters, the TikToks, all the social medias. All of those links are down in the description below. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment down below all about the week's happenings and what you would like us to talk about in next week's episode. We really do want an audience 2 pennies to bring into the fold. But if you didn't know, it's the new year. And what better way to start off the new year, gentlemen, than to look back at the last one? That's right, ladies and gentlemen, it is time for our top 10 video games of 2023. Now, if you're new to a Two Penny Games top 10 list, how it works is all 3 of us have individual top 10s that we will go through and break down for you throughout the episode. Let's say, for example, my number 10 is Assassin's Creed Mirage. Spoilers, it's not. But let's say it is my number 10, and for some reason it's Phil's number 7. When I start this off talking about Assassin's Creed Mirage at number 10, he will also join the conversation and say, hey, Assassin's Creed Mirage is also on my list. He will not reveal where on his list it is until we get to that number, but he will have that conversation with me as we break it down for that. Except if a game is in one of our top 3s. So let's say the Gollum. Let's say Middle-earth's Gollum is in my top 3, but it's Connor's number 6. Connor's going to start talking about it. I'm going to remain silent until that number 3 spot comes up, and then I will nerd all the way out about it when it's that time. In between number 4 and number 3, we each have honorable mentions. We have up to 3 honorable mentions. These are games that don't necessarily need to come out this year. They could have come out this year and you played it and it just didn't make the list and you wanted to include it. Whatever the game is, you can throw it on there for fun. That's sort of just an honorable mention of like, hey, I really liked this game. I'd like to give it a shout out. Or it's an important game that I played throughout the year. And then at the end of the episode, I will break down all of the points for each of the 3 lists. I've already done the math, so you don't worry. You don't have to sit here and watch me do math. But I will show, reveal the top 10 official Two Penny Games Game of the Year list and give you our official Two Penny Games Game of the Year. Gentlemen, I did it last year, and I kind of liked doing it again this year. I want you, both of you, to go ahead and write down what you think the top 3 official Two Penny games are. In order, put them in 1, 2, 3. What do you think those are? And then we will revisit that discussion at the end of the podcast. Gentlemen,
That's a hard question.
to start, before we get into the numbers, what a fucking year 2023 was for game releases, man. This list was hard for me to put together. I struggled a lot. There was a lot of fighting back and forth. There were some heartbreaking things that should have been on this list, but just I didn't have room for it. And usually I feel like I find a good balance between smaller games and larger games, but it was just such a stacked AAA year that most of my entries are AAA games. This year, most notably, I think last year I had games such as Power Wash Simulator at my number 2 and so forth. This year, not so much the case. Not as fun, but we're going to have a lot of fun talking about all the great games that came out this year. Agreed?
Yeah.
I
was
agree.
thinking
No,
about
I
what the top
completely
3
agree.
Two Penny Gamescast games are going to be.
Huh?
I was thinking of the top 3
You better
games.
write it. You better start writing it down, son.
I just have one more spot I need to fill.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
it's taking up all my brain power. I don't know if I can do this episode anymore, guys. That's all I got.
Shut it down. We gotta go home. All right. Well, gentlemen, no more waiting. No more debating. Let's go ahead and jump right into it. Let's jump off the list with our number 10s. Connor, we're starting with you. We're gonna go to Phil and then me. What is your 10th favorite game of the year?
At the end of the day, I decided to reserve my top 10 spot for Final Fantasy 16. Its spectacular boss fights and just investing narrative left me with a sense of longing by the time the game was through. And when I was deciding upon my list, it kept popping back into my head as a game that needed to be on there. It was a tough spot for the number 10 position and the number 9 position, but number 10 most definitely was the thing I had to mull over the most, and I think it deservedly is Final Fantasy 16. The combat I found a little bit lacking, especially with 7 Remake only releasing a couple years ago, and having not only one of the best action systems in any game that I played, but the best gameplay in any Final Fantasy game that I played, and I played quite a number of them. But despite that, like I said, the narrative and the characters therein were just so investing, and it was able to carry me through over 30-hour long campaign that even when the gameplay started faltering, the narrative just held it up. And those boss fights, which easily the best of the year and the best boss fights in the last several years. If I actually put my mind to it, I could say that pretty confidently. Love that game.
Yeah, Final Fantasy 16 is also on my list. I cannot reveal where exactly it is. But the main 2 things I kind of want to cover, stuff that Connor already kind of mentioned, it was, the narrative and the characters that are in it, and the flashy, super fun combat that just is, whenever you fully get into however you move, interacts with each other and the enemies you're fighting, you get into this flow state. And I love games that give you this flow state of I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this, then I'm going to do this. And you're just hitting the enemies all over the place, drawing them in, pushing them back, gathering them together, dodging and weaving in awesome timing and your counters. And it's just a great time. I love Final Fantasy 16.
Tavin does as well. Why are you laughing?
Loves it so much it's not on his list.
Yeah, I loved it so much. It's not even there. I
So
screwed up.
I hate to pause this.
Go ahead.
Right? But Phil, this is a slight against you the most since you're on top of the game. Me and Tavin are not. We have the rare drink to consume.
You know what, ladies and gentlemen, top 10 episodes. It's all about fun. We're all about discussing the games. Time to crack open some brewskis. Phil, I believe you're drinking some whiskey. What's going on over here, son?
Water whiskey.
Oh, just a nice little bit of Crown.
Yeah, it's Crown and water. It looks like
No, Crown and Sprite.
Crown and Sprite. Is that a thing people do?
Absolutely, it is. Whiskey
Oh, yeah.
Sprite?
Yeah. Damn. Okay.
100%.
The only whiskeys I really do with Sprite are Crown and TX. So
Yeah. Sprite or really any lemon lime soda really goes together, or with pretty much any liquor you want.
I'll try that.
Yeah, you can't really go wrong with a Sprite. Phil,
Yeah.
Jump to you, my friend. What is
my
your
number 10?
10?
My entry number 10 on my top 10 list is going to be, I believe, our first unique entry. I don't believe this is going to be on y'all's list. I have Pikmin 4. Pikmin 4, as TGA has confirmed, the best sim strategy game of 2023. Holy shit, was this game fun! My first foray into the Pikmin franchise. I did not have a Wii U, so I did not play Pikmin 3, and I did not play Pikmin 1 or 2 either. So, yeah, I loved playing through this game. There was not a single moment where I was like, man, I'm getting too much. This is too much. Like, anytime I sat down to play it, it was always external factors that made me have to put it down. It was always like just running around, using your Pikmin to solve puzzles, fight enemies, using those Pikmin wisely. They call it Dandori, and it's like the art of doing things in what's the word? What's the fucking word?
Proficient?
Proficient. Well, no, not even efficient. Efficient is what I was looking for. An efficient manner. Where you take your Pikmin, you send them off to go do this thing, but you got to make sure you have enough to stay with you to fight enemies. You got to make sure that none of your Pikmin are just being stuck in one certain place, which you get upgrades for, like a alarm that'll bring them all to you or to the location you set that you want them to go. So you want to make sure you don't have any Pikmin standing still. They have these awesome Dandori battles, which you go against these little boss fights and you try to capture all these little relics, as they call them, but it's usually fun stuff like a Nintendo DS or some kind of funny little thing that they call the wrong thing. Like there's a China doll set, a Russian doll set, I should say. And you're going through and they're all worth certain points, and so you have to get more points than your opponent in order to win. That's also a multiplayer aspect. You can join in with somebody else and fight against them in a Dandori battle. But overall, I just had a great time with Pikmin 4, and I'm looking forward to maybe we'll get a Pikmin 5 in the future. Who knows?
I mean, it takes so goddamn long for them to do the fourth game.
They got Pikmin 3, what, 2014 Pikmin 3?
It was a launch title on the Wii U. So
when did the Wii U come out? When you have a nothing console that comes out, it's kind of hard to remember.
I think because Wii U came out later, right? Or no, did it hit earlier? I forget.
I think it was 2013.
I think it was 2012, 2013.
It was 2012, late 2012.
2012.
Okay. All right. Very nice. Very nice. Well, gentlemen, that brings it back to me. And I think the way I organized my list this year is not so much games that like I thought were the highest quality games, really just the games that I was like, I need this on my personal top 10. And I don't think this is the best game of the year by far. I think there are several other games that are quite a bit better that aren't on my list. But it just left such an impact on me, mostly in its narrative, that I cannot deny that Alan Wake 2 is just one of the best games of this year, and Alan Wake 2 is my number 10 game of the year. An incredible narrative, an incredible meta, just completely breaking the fourth wall, or just a insane media evolving narrative and game that like really just like boggles the mind of how they were able to get it done and how they were able to sort of keep it so clean and fantastic. It's just, for me, the thing about it is that its gameplay is severely lacking, which is super disappointing after the likes of Control. I find it's attempts at being a survival horror fall super flat and just really don't feel important at all. And its gunplay is serviceable. It is the most just serviceable third-person shooter I've ever played in my life. It's kind of clunky. Some of the level design is kind of confusing in a bad way. And if it just weren't for it being such a great art piece, it wouldn't have made my list at all. But I think I saw it on Twitter. Somebody said it's a 10 out of 10 media experience, but a 7 out of 10 video game. And I'm kind of along those lines, where it's like, as a piece of art, it's one of the best examples of what the video game medium can offer. But as a video game, it's alright. It's cool. I enjoyed it, but like it wasn't bad, but it just wasn't anything crazy. And so for that, I had to put it on my top 10 somewhere just because like I cannot tell you the number of times that I've sat back and just continued thinking and thinking and thinking about all of the events and what they were trying to say and the themes and the characters of that game. It's absolutely insane what they were able to do in it. And for that, it is my number 10.
I guess it goes like go all the way back around to me, huh?
It does indeed. Connor, we're moving on to our number 9. So go ahead, my friend, hit me with your number 9.
Well, my number 9 spot is similar to Phil's number 10 spot, one that is not going to be on the rest of your guys' list, and possibly could have scored more on mine if I had done things properly, which leads me to say that my number 9 game of this year is Lies of P. A beautiful setting with a diverse and personalized combat system, and a game that after I ranked it, I realized I should have played this a lot more. Even though I played upwards of about 25 hours, it's just a game that is able to carry on the same kind of gameplay that you associate with From Software, but while at the same time could be criticized as a copy of Souls games, it's able to find its own identity within, and even though other people came to that same conclusion, they ended up not really caring because the combat system is so entertaining. The world itself of Krat and all the crazy shit that happens in there, and the more traditional characters that in From Software games are done a lot differently, are done in a way that's more marketable to the average gamer. And it helps create this complete package that will stand above all of the other Souls-like games years and years in the future, I think. And the fact that it was the first game made by the studio, the first, fully made game, because I think they had done studio support before then. Studio 8, I want to say, but don't quote me on that. We're able to just hit it out of the park in a way that, people were enticed by it when we first saw footage of it at E3s or game shows, wherever the hell it showed its face in the first place, and ended up being this just unique game that stood above many of the other ones that came out this year. Love Lies of P. And if you hadn't played it, I recommend it.
Got to be the number 1 game of the year that I wish I had made time for.
You would have liked it.
Yeah. It just like such a creative looking world, such an interesting looking universe, and definitely looked like it'd be a lot of fun to play. So
that combat system, man.
I wish I had found the time to give it the time of day. But moving on, Phil, where are you at for your number 9, sir?
My number 9 spot is going to go to the Dead Space remake. This was once again talking about firsts. This is my first foray into the Dead Space universe that we have there with the USG Ishimura and the fight against these necromorphs with the what's it called, the marker? That's the thing.
It is.
I wanted to this game, getting into it, and when I was like fully into it, I was debating going online and buying. They released this little marker lamp that you can buy.
Yeah.
I debated getting that and putting it on my desk because like there was a funny tweet that I saw where it was like, oh, I bought this thing online and been having some really weird dreams recently. And if you play the game, you understand why you'd be getting fucked up by that thing, because you don't want to be near that thing.
You don't?
But anyway, no, I had a great time. You make us whole again, Connor. Make us whole again.
Fuck you and what's the next line? Oh, that second game. Never mind.
Yeah, I don't recall that line. No, Dead Space is also on my list. And as someone who played the original back in the day, to just see what great innovations they did to it, the great quality of life, the improved third act, the obvious upgrade to visuals and aesthetic to the game is so awesome. The way they were able to tie it into the series, because there was a couple of narrative paths they went down that didn't really get followed up later on, and for them to kind of come back and make it full circle and work all together again was really cool. And I keep saying it, man, the absolute best audio design in any game of the year, period, man. This game is going to be so important when we talk about survival horror from here on out and how it evolved the genre of survival horror via its audio design. Really, 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 really impressive game. And I really hope we get a second one that's less actiony and more in this tone, because it was absolutely one of my favorite games of the year.
Completely agree. It makes me really want to play that second game, especially if it's remade similar to this one. I had a great time overall playing through this game. Very happy to be introduced to this world of Dead Space.
I need to play that game. I missed out on it.
Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I had just played the original Dead Space for shits and giggles, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And then this thing came out not that long afterwards. And also, I played Dead Space 2 after Dead Space 1. And when that gets announced for a remake, because I think almost at this point it's inevitable based off how well the first one did.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back and play this one. And I hope you guys get to experience. I know you've played Dead Space 2 back in the day, but Phil, you'll enjoy that game substantially, especially in its remake form.
Dead Space 2 is a blast. Like, absolutely. Like, it was always my favorite of the trilogy back in the day.
It's a fan favorite.
Yeah, but yeah, this remake is so good that it absolutely just steals the thunder, and it's the quintessential Dead Space experience, like, by far. It's not even close. This is I think, like, I'm pretty certain after all this time and a year of, evolving and thinking about it and debating it, I'm pretty certain this is my favorite remake ever. Like, it's just that good. And it, like, God damn, Phil, am I about to go and, like, load this up tonight and play some more Dead Space tonight? Some more. You know what I mean? Oh my God, we're gonna have a lot of moments like that throughout this recording, I'm sure. Moving on.
Still need the platinum.
Yeah, dude, it's a fun platinum experience. I'm not gonna lie, I really enjoyed my time with the platinum. A lot of replays. It kept crashing on me in my final playthrough, like right at the end, which was really annoying. But other than that, it was a blast.
Wasn't it?
Huh?
Wasn't it like the final boss?
It's that outside area. Like it froze during the final boss, but also in the moments leading up to it. Like as soon as you get outside in that area, and it was something to do with the force gun. Like the force gun with, I guess, the physics of how the outside environment worked, just completely crashed the game, and it happened to me like 3 times, which was really, really annoying. Moving on to my number 9 of the year. My number 9 is Armored Core 6. This is probably the best combat design of the year. Maybe not my favorite, but definitely the best and well thought out. Incredible customization, incredible battles and combat. There are certain levels and certain bosses that just the conversation around them in good old From Software fashion, the conversation around them, just flip it over and use your pinky to keep it down when you pick it up.
I keep forgetting.
I'm saying flip it back over on this side.
You get the same thing then.
What happened to all the wooden ones? Or these ones?
They're over there.
They're over there?
Yeah.
All right, well, we should have used those. Anyways, Armored Core 6.
Audio listeners, they're talking about coasters. Coasters got stuck to the table. Connor doesn't know how to use coasters.
Connor doesn't know how to use coasters.
I know how to use coasters. It sticks to it.
Armored Core 6 is an absolute blast to play. Absolutely, like, stays on my console all the time. I freaking love it. Probably the game on my list that I had played more. I wish I had played more of throughout the year. I just didn't have the time for it like I wanted to, and I fully intend to get back to it one day. When is that going to happen? I don't know. But one thing cool about it is that I did bounce back to it at one point and try to sort of pick it up again, and it wasn't that hard to pick back up, which kind of surprised me, because that control scheme is not super intuitive. Like it's kind of confusing. There's a lot going on, a lot of buttons doing a lot of different functions and so forth. But I picked it up fairly easily, and I found that nice combat flow pretty quickly again, and it was really quite an impressive game.
Well, it sounds to me, Tavin, like it is intuitive, based on what you just said.
No, because I definitely had to spend 5 minutes going, how do I do this? Oh, that's right, this.
Fair enough. Well, Armored Core 6 is on my list as well. For all of the reasons stated therein. Best combat of this year.
I'll say Armored Core 6 is not on my list. However, I feel the worst about it. That's the game I feel the worst about it not being on my list.
We all have sources of shame, Phil. We all do.
Yeah.
What's mine, you
greatest
ask?
shame of this year.
I know what mine is.
You know what yours is? I have an idea of what that could be, but I'm not quite sure. Connor, let's go ahead and move on to number 8, my friend. Where are you at?
Beginning number 8, a pick that I found controversial to myself based off its predecessor, which in this case, it's the Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Off the back of Breath of the Wild, it was able to just add a whole new dimension to traversal, to puzzle solving, while also just keeping the same exploratory notion, exploratory feel that the original game provided with its somewhat fine combat. I'm able to make it work, but easily this, whole crazy way to do puzzles and to, suck yourself up through solid objects that are flowing above you, going across the maps that go from top to the middle to the bottom underground and uncovering all of that, while at the same time keeping the same exact world that existed in Breath of the Wild, is an impressive feat on its own. The reason why I couldn't get it higher, despite it being, at the core, Breath of the Wild, which is a game that I absolutely adore, when you have all of these games that came out this year that did this new thing, that were, new titles, that were recurring titles that hadn't had games come out in many, many years, and did interesting things with them, Breath of the Wild's clone is good, but it is a clone. And I don't think in good faith I could say that that's one of the best games of the year when it's just carried so much by Breath of the Wild.
Tears of the Kingdom is also on my list. And I hard disagree with everything you said there at the end. You too, Phil?
Yeah. So Connor, remember when you just said we all have shame, and you have something that is your greatest shame?
Yeah.
This should be your greatest shame.
Yeah, I figured you were gonna rate this high, Phil.
Yeah. Tears of the Kingdom is also on my list.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's on my list, and pretty much everything you said there at the end, I full-heartedly disagree with. I don't think Breath of the Wild is a good game. It's okay at best, and its combat really lets it down, and Tears of the Kingdom does nothing to improve that, which is why it's not super high on my list, but it's at a fair spot, I think. And just the innovation that they did in expression of creativity, the innovation in sort of just gameplay design, and how they really gave tools to the player that allows us to really truly think outside the box and be creative. And I don't think there's a game out there with more moments of, can I do this? Oh shit, I can. Oh my god, that's awesome. And the satisfying loop that you get into of, can I do this? Let me put in the work to do it. Oh shit, I can do it. Oh my god, it worked. Oh my god, that's awesome. The puzzle designs are way better in this game. What is it called? Like ascend and putting things together, and
Ultra
Hand, the Ultra Hand ability and stuff like that. It's so much better. And then a story that you actually kind of care about a little bit. Like as far as Zelda stories go, this one's solid. Like it does the job. Whereas like Breath of the Wild, it's like you could not give less of a shit about the story of that game. And I just think it just makes Breath of the Wild feel like a prototype. And I'm almost shocked that they didn't wait longer in development of Breath of the Wild and make this one first. Because if this is what we got out of the gate, I would have been just along with everybody else. But because Breath of the Wild is Breath of the Wild, I think it's a fine game. Like it's okay at best, and it's got a lot of issues. It just feels like a lot of nothing. And Tears of the Kingdom feels like a lot of how did I say it in my review? I said Breath of the Wild wants you to experience the world, where Tears of the Kingdom wants you to engage with it. And just in the way that they chose their game design ethos to be around that makes it just one of the best games of the year, easily. Phil, moving on to your number 8, my friend. What have you got for us?
Yeah, my number 8, we have Hi-Fi Rush. This, it's a rhythm action game, which just shadow dropped out of nowhere back in January of last year. At this point, because we're recording this on the 1st of 2024. Mm-hmm. But yeah, this game was just a shock. Just came out of nowhere and took the world by storm. And I think I mean, controversially, I guess, because people love Starfield, I think this is one of Xbox's only wins this year.
Oof.
And yeah. But I fucking love Hi-Fi Rush. I thought all of the combat was super satisfying and super flashy. Once you get into like the rhythm of this rhythm game, it really just, like, no pun intended, it sings. It comes together so well. A lot of the combos you can go with, and I love the aesthetic of like your abilities being like tape decks, like you go through and you switch them out, and it's just a great time. I fully enjoyed it. It took a little bit longer for me to like really get into it. It was right after the first big boss that I really started to feel the rhythm of the game and get into it. But when I did, I just could not put it down. It was such a great time.
I love that game as well.
No, yeah. Hi-Fi Rush is another example of a game that, man, I wish I had played more of it. I wish I had put it on this list. It's not on my list, but it really is just a really good game. It's really solid, and really surprising to come from a studio like Tango Gameworks. Like, these are the same guys who did Evil Within. These are the same guys who did, Ghostwire Tokyo. Like, this is really impressive. Like, this game is a completely different tone, a completely different style of gameplay, and they, I think, really nailed it. This is one of the best rhythm action games out there, and if you haven't played it, do yourself a service and go ahead and play it. And the beauty of it all, Xbox Game Pass, like $40 or Xbox Game Pass, and the surprise, the shock, definitely one of the more standout titles of the year. Moving on to my number 8. I've got to check my notes for this. My number 8 is Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. Actually, it was. I take back what I said earlier. I thought it was higher. It's not. My number 8 is Tears of the Kingdom as well. Moving on to number 7. Connor, go ahead, take it away, my friend.
My number 7 spot is Star Wars Jedi Survivor. It was able to build on its predecessor in gameplay-wise the exact ways that it needed to. It had some stellar combat, some of the best of the year, while also a very interesting level design, an open world design, with tons of collectibles that I actually had incentive to get to customize my lightsaber. I'm, as someone who's not a big Star Wars fan, I can say with absolute certainty that the reason why this game is carried as far as it is isn't because it has the Star Wars name and because Star Wars fanboys like this loser right over here carry it. But it stands on its own. The story, while it could have been better, still is able to have, even though not the best narrative, have some of the biggest, coolest moments in gaming this year. One most notable, the ways you can customize your combat style with the lightsaber styles that you use. Every single person that I know that played it had a different kind of setup that they can just, take to, because you can have 2 lightsaber styles at the same time. Mine was the cross guard style, that basically the greatsword way, and the dual wielding. Of course, always cool. Everyone liked the dual wielding, and I think that goes very far to say how just well made that combat system was. And just like the first game, it left me with a feeling of, I want to see what they do with the subsequent sequel, both narratively and gameplay-wise. And this has given me a lot of hope that they are able to successfully pull that off. Because with the shaky release of the first game, Jedi's Fallen Order, it left off at a spot where it only had up to go or kind of stay the same and not really do much to revolutionize its gameplay. And this one succeeded in its mission. And that's not something that every single game can do. And those folks definitely did.
Yeah, my number 7 is also Jedi Survivor. And I pretty much agree with what Connor's saying. I was highly satisfied with the game that we got. I think I started like something like 3 months or 4 months after you guys had already finished the game. Because y'all started whenever the game came out at the end of April, and I didn't get to it until I think September or something like that. And yeah, one of those things they say, better late than never. And I was very happy with what how that story played out. I was happy with all the customization options they gave us. I love how much we were able to customize Cal as far as his looks, his costume that he's wearing, his lightsaber, and I loved the different stances that you could get with the lightsabers. My personal stance was the blaster and dual wield. That was my go-to, and I just fully enjoyed my time playing that game, platinuming that game, except for whenever I was missing like one fucking priorite shard, and then I had to go hunt that thing down.
The woes of a platinum gamer.
Indeed.
The lowest common denominator of gamer.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
It's aggressive. Moving on to my number 7 of the year, Sea of Stars. Sea of Stars is one that I did not have my eye on until I believe Phil had drafted it in his fantasy draft, and I was like, what the hell is this game? And I went and I looked it up and watched what they were doing, and I was like, oh, wow, I need to get in on this right away. And I was not disappointed at all. Definitely, I think it starts stronger than it finishes. The second half, I think, leaves a little bit to be desired narratively, outside of some key plot moments, which, you know, damn near brought me to tears. But as far as turn-based RPGs go, this is one of the best. It's got a combat style that we have seen before, but I think is just really, really fun and engaging. And even if you're not a turn-based style player, check this one out, because they do some things to like kind of keep it interesting and keep it fun and keep it active. Without going full action RPG like, say, a Final Fantasy VII Remake or anything like that. And it's a blast. It's got so much, like, love and care and TLC in it, and some of the most charismatic characters in any game this year. And for that reason, it's my number 7. It was one that, like, it started so strong that it was, like, up there, top 3 easily. And then as I got further into it and as I got further away from it, I just found myself thinking about it a little less and less as the year went on, which is why it kind of dropped, you know, a couple of spots down to number 7. But overall, one of my favorite games of this year, and I can't wait to load it up on PlayStation and give it a shot over there and try and get a platinum off of that.
Platinum again? I love platinum games. I love platinum games. Whatever.
Don't be mad because you're bad, Connor. You know what I'm saying? Don't be mad because you're bad.
I'm sorry. I'm bitter.
Moving on to number 5. Connor, what have you got?
Number 6.
That's how numbers work?
Yes, number 6. I'm sorry. I wrote down the number and then I moved on to something else like an idiot.
Well, my number 6 spot is Armored Core 6. It's got badass, highly customizable mech combat that just leaves you feeling so cool. It shows that From Software is capable of not just doing the Souls-like formula. They kind of showed that with Sekiro, since that was the farthest deviation from games like Bloodborne, Dark Souls, and the eventual Elden Ring.
Still
but Armored Core 6. What's that? It's still the best game? Hey, fair. That's not a controversial opinion, Tavin, because of how good it is. And that action is once again shown here in Armored Core 6. In a year that had some of the coolest combat in many of the games that came out, it stood high above with the rest of them. I also regret not playing this more. I played it a pretty substantial amount. I plan to go back because I do want to finish that campaign. I do like the progression of it. I've always been a fan of the FromSoft way of telling stories where it's not exactly direct. It's not really shoving narratives or dialogue often in your face. It lets the world and the tone of everything speak for itself far more. And Armored Core 6, you know, I guess I'm an Armored Core fan now, though I think there's some legacy players that probably think I'm a poser or something like that. But I definitely wasn't like one of those fucking weaklings who were, you know, giving up the game after like 2 hours because they couldn't take it. You know, some people couldn't take everyone here in this podcast could take the heat, but tons of other people out there, they crumbled like the weaklings they are. And you know who you are.
True.
Live in shame.
I mean, let's be honest. Armored Core 6 not that hard of a video game. Like, it's challenging.
Don't undermine me.
It's got its difficulty spikes for sure. That final boss of chapter 1 is hard, you know, but not that hard, you know.
No, it's pretty damn hard.
Like, if you think Armored Core 6 is like too hard for you, you should probably check yourself, you know.
Some people,
you know.
Some people.
Disabilities aside, Phil, talk to me about your number 6, my friend.
My number 6 is going to go to a game called Super Mario Wonder.
Hey, this is also on my list.
Yeah. Super Mario Wonder is, I said it in my review of the game, probably my favorite 2D Mario game. I just had a blast of a time. I love the art direction in this game. I love the music in this game. I love going through each level and how all of them are different once you collect that wonder flower. And even without the wonder flower, they all have some uniqueness to them. It's just that's whenever the uniqueness really shines is once you collect that wonder flower. And it's so cool to figure out all the different ways you have to go through the level in order to like fully finish the whole level, like 100% it, I should say. The only drawbacks that I have, as stated in my review, is the lack of unique boss fights. I wish there were more power-ups, and I wish that mode, like the Yoshi / Nabbit mode, was just turn off and on, so you can play as the other characters without having to not use power-ups essentially. And I mean, even though you don't really take damage, you can still die. But
Yeah.
it's I have my gripes with the game, but overall, I think that game is phenomenal.
Man, looking at this game, I can say with certainty I'd rather play this than Mario 64.
Well, Mario Wonder is also on my list, and I've never played a more aptly titled video game. Mario Wonder is quite wonderful, just to be corny and say the same joke everybody else has. A lot of creativity is in this game, fantastic level design, just a blast to absolutely play. Nice difficulty spikes where you need them, but certainly is more focused on just having fun and being a fun time for all types of gamers and so forth. Blasting music, rocking enemy designs, and yeah, I can't say enough about the wonder seeds. The fact that every single level has at least one wonder seed that just completely flips the entire level on its head in completely unpredictable ways. It never gets stale. It never gets old. It's just always a good time and always a blast. And one of my favorite games of the year by far.
Some people might say this is wrong, and if fully understandable, but I feel like for transparency's sake, it needs to be said. Both Tavin and Phil have an inflation fetish. They have a bestiality fetish. So when they turn into elephants and, and fat elephants, I should say, they get off on that, which is why they put it so high, which is why they have it on the list in the first place. So, I get it's a Mario game. That's deserving of respect in and of itself, but we know why this game had a lot of people take to it. And they're not children of God that took to this game, but heathens. Mm-hmm. You who know.
Okay, so my number 6.
Wow, Zowie!
My number 6 is Resident Evil 4 Remake. I think this is a phenomenal game that stands on its own. You don't need to play the original to play and enjoy this one, though it certainly does improve the experience if you just have the comparison between the two and to see sort of some of the changes that they made, things that are different, especially that whole last half to third act of the game is way better than it was in the original game. If you look back in our Game Club review of it, I was really hard on that second half because I just feel like they ran out of gas. All of their great ideas were in the first half, and in this one, it's a full guns blazing ride from beginning to end. It's just a badass game. Not my favorite Resident Evil by far, but certainly just so high quality that if it's not in your top 3, what are you doing, man? It is that good.
But it's not in your top 3.
Of Resident Evil titles?
Oh, Resident Evil titles.
Yeah. I think it's just so much fun. It's a tone that I like more than the original tone of the game, but it still keeps it kind of campy and funny and goofy and stuff like that. But just visually is able to kind of unify its tone and be on par with the other remakes that we've gotten recently. And it shows that to me, what Capcom is doing with this remake series, there really is no hold bars. They can do whatever they want, and I'm on board for it. Sure, give me Resident Evil 6 again. Give me whatever crappy Resident Evil spin-off title you want to remake. I'm totally down because y'all have been on a fucking win streak the entire time, and this is no exception.
Yeah, it's on my list as well.
Where's everybody going? Bingo.
I can't believe they kept that line in the game.
And that's what makes it great. It truly is vision of what the game could have originally been fully realized. And I think they're in a spot with the Resident Evil franchise, where they're only able to make it as good as it is because of how they've grown from when they started falling with Resident Evil 5 and fully fell when it came to Resident Evil 6 and their eventual rise back up to the stardom that they've been in these last couple of years.
Yeah. Connor, to keep you going, let's keep on you, my man. What is your number 5?
My number 5 is one of the highest rated on all of our lists that nobody else has, and that is Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader. It's an expansive RPG with entertaining tactical combat, both on the ground and in space, and a unique cast of characters that are extremely fun to control. It seriously is one of the best RPGs I've played. I get a hard-on whenever it's just long line of text in response to something that somebody is saying, and I get to decide who my character is and how that's going to influence the situation at hand. And I've made decisions in the time since I played that have come back, even though they were good in motive, bit me in the ass. And so it's not exactly a game that just hands itself, it doesn't tell you outright what your decisions are going to rot. And that really just keeps you guessing on whether you're making the correct decision. Because usually in games where it gives you a lot of control as the player in what you say and how you define your character, there's the good, neutral, bad kind of character. This is all basically coming from Mass Effect, which is how they, thanks BioWare, for good and bad reasons. But it never is so clear, even with ones that you think are just outright the wrong choice to make because it seems a bit immoral. That's just not necessarily true. It's cause and effect is a strong theme in this game. I put this on my list kind of late in the year since I only started playing it 2 weeks ago, but it's one of the only games this year where I was distracted from playing it, so I couldn't just play that game, and I constantly had my headspace there. Playing Mario 64, I don't want to play that fucking game. I want to play Rogue Trader, and that's on number 5.
I'll say, Connor, I make fun of you every year because every year you put a Warhammer game on your goddamn list, and I'm like, man, these games look like crap. They look cheap. Like I've been in and out, like as you've been playing, and I'm kind of looking at some of the B-roll here and how you've been talking about the game. I might give it a spin.
It's a game that's up your alley, and as a 40K fan, as Tavin said, it's able to just kind of already have a baseline, interesting world that all the game has to do is dive into those things rather than write them from scratch, and so they can focus a lot more on the specific choices that your character is making and how that influences the world of the areas that you go into. It's a game I would recommend to anybody who likes tactical games.
Blast.
And you're one of those, Tavin.
I am one of those. Phil, talk to me about your number 5, man.
Yeah, my number 5, I've kind of already talked about it. It's Final Fantasy 16. That's going to be my number 5 pick. I was a little shocked whenever Connor had his at number 10, but I kind of already did my whole song and dance about it. My only thing that I'll add on is I guess this game just resonated that much more with me than it did Connor, which, I mean, no shot against him. It just everyone has their own opinions, and that's one thing that I really like about this episode that we do is even if we have similar games on our lists, we don't know where exactly they're going to be for each of us because different people resonate differently with these different things. That's what I love, that our whole thing here isn't just an echo chamber. Like, sure, there's sometimes we all agree, but
that just means the game's good when we all agree.
Yeah,
like, we can't
absolutely
control that. A good game's a good game.
Well, I guess it's not that
game's
good
a
of a
good
game because we don't all agree on that one.
Well,
shut the fuck
the
up.
right,
Jesus Christ. I mean, I get it.
The right
I get what
people
your point
agree.
is, but come on.
The right people agree. My number 5 game of the year is Super Mario Brothers Wonder. Went ahead and I already talked about that, so we're going to jump right into number 4. Connor, give it to me, man.
Number 4, again, we also already talked about Resident Evil 4 Remake.
Got it.
This is the best Resident Evil game with the best combat and the best balancing of the campiness level that Resident Evil has kind of eventually become known for, and the more serious dark tones of, zombies / parasites / giant fucking monsters like a Gregorian monk. It also has just such a great inventory system, as the last game did. Some people didn't like it because you can sort, which just don't sort. Do the way it originally was done. Don't bitch about it, loser. Just such fun combat. Another one just on the list of best combat of games that came out this year. And that's pretty impressive for it to do because it is kind of what's you can say has become kind of stale, which is the third person behind the shoulder survival horror gameplay, which so many games copied that Resident Evil 4 kind of really popularized, but it was able to take what it popularized back in the day and just amp it up with a sick-ass parry system, a nice, actually responsive dodge that doesn't suck like 3's did. Love it. Play it if you haven't already.
I think me and Tavin both agree that Resident Evil 2 remake is better.
Oh yeah, by far.
That's fair.
Level design.
That's the only thing it has over it. Level design.
Scary. Actually scary.
Sure,
But I mean,
yeah.
I'll say for a game like Resident Evil 4 to be, pretty much rooted in survival horror and for it to have such great combat, like survival horror games don't have great combat, like more often than not. I think Dead Space is a great example of that. Dead Space combat is fine. It works. It gets the job done. But survival horror lives and dies on atmosphere, on tension, and on just overall gameplay design and level design and the experience you go through it. So for Resident Evil 4 to knock it out of the park in the way that it did is really, really quite impressive. Phil, talk to me about your number 4, my friend.
My number 4, this might come as a shock, is Spider-Man 2.
Yes.
For the PS5. I fucking love Spider-Man, and it just goes to show how great of a year that 2023 is for games. Whenever I can buy the whole ass controller for this title, and it's still not even in the top 3. And that's just how good of the games that this year are. But no, Spider-Man 2, I thought overall, the whole thing, just being back behind the controls of Peter Parker and Miles, and they're going through their stories, and how they kind of cross paths every once in a while, but also how, even though they're both Spider-Man, they each have their own problems that they have to deal with. And it's been, I mean, this game has gotten flowers upon flowers, and deservedly so. This game is phenomenal. Even though my PlayStation says that I platinumed it in under 20 hours, I think it's quality over quantity when it comes to hours. Like the quality time that I had with that game, just spoke to me. And the way that they somehow improved the swinging and how it feels to be Spider-Man. And Spider-Man 2018 and Miles Morales already felt fucking incredible, and they just cranked that shit up to 11 in Spider-Man 2, and it's just nuts.
Got anything to add, bitch boy?
No, because it's not on my list.
Well, jumping over to me, my number 4 is Dead Space Remake. I mean, I kind of already talked about it before, but it really is that great of a game, and I had to rank it high. It's probably the game that stayed with me the most throughout the entire year. I just couldn't stop thinking about it, and so I put it all the way up at number 4. Gentlemen,
Top 3.
it's time. Actually, Connor, we're going to take
honorable
a pause,
mentions.
and we're going to do some honorable mentions. Cool. Connor, let's go ahead and start with you, my friend. Where are you at with the?
Are we listing off all of them, or are we taking it bit by bit?
Just kind of, I think just kind of go through them all, and you can just give a 1 or 2 sentences as to what made it great.
Yeah, since we just come off the back of talking about it, Spider-Man 2 was one of my honorable mentions. Similarly to Rogue Trader, one of the last games I played this year, I really wanted to play it all because from everything that I've heard, the highest praise that it's gotten is the narrative, and I wanted to see that through to the entire end. And I've had myself very much enjoying it. Similarly to Final Fantasy 16, which was really the combat of whether that's going to be on the list, or Spider-Man 2. Both of them kind of had combat systems that got pretty stale by the end of it, and the narrative was really carrying me through. But Spider-Man 2 has probably one of the sickest moments in all of gaming this year, and its traversal system is incredibly fun. It's similar to Breath of the Wild, takes its original game and has that baseline, but just tweaks it here and there to make it overall, I think, better. And it just, like I said, it didn't make the cut. Neither did Street Fighter 6. I felt kind of ashamed for not having a fighting game on my list.
If I could have a number 11, it would be Street Fighter 6.
Yeah, that would be on my number. Honestly, if I actually had to debate between the two, I don't know if that or Spider-Man 2 would have won out on the list, but it's one that I also didn't play as much as I wish I did. But the time that I did spend with it, it's just a high-quality game, fighting game specifically, that is able to be enjoyed by a wide range of people. And it's going to be one that, even if I don't give it the due respect it has right now. As more characters come out, as patches come out that change the makeup of the game, I think we're going to see people talk about it more and more on this game, this when it comes to the year's releases, it's going to be one that's going to stay in the conversation for years and years and years due to the type of game that it is. My final honorable mention is an unfortunate one because it was going to be a shoo-in on the list, and that is the remake of Star Ocean Second Story R. Star Ocean Second Story R is the name of the remake. I think the R is tacked on there for remake.
Yeah, that means remake.
Yeah. It has such an interesting combat system where it puts you on the field that you would typically do your turn-based combat that RPGs are known for, yet you have full control over your character. You have a little dodge that if you do it successfully, you get a nice boon. If you fail, you get your ass handed to you. But it, just really surprised me with its, fun, gameplay to shake up the RPG formula, and its beautiful pixel art and its beautiful use of lighting and shadows, as well as its nice cast of characters, which I wasn't able to experience to the full extent that I wish I could, because the reason why it's not on my list is I have to start the game over. I cannot continue with it where I am, because unbeknownst to me, you can miss your companions. You straight up miss them. Part of this is because I took a break from when I first started playing the game, and not doing the due diligence of looking at the tutorial again. But the other one is that the other factor is they just don't tell you at all. So I had missed 3 party members that seemed to be the most interesting out of the entire cast when I went to do my research after the fact. And I just couldn't go on the game knowing that I had skipped such a significant part of that game. And that's a shame, because it really is one that was slept on this year. Starfield was put on the Best RPG nomination list for the Video Game Awards. Tavin's shaking his head because he doesn't know what he's talking about.
It's just...
And he got snubbed because Starfield is Starfield. It's the Bethesda game.
Listen,
and the people who decide that are brainless automatons. Starfield is Starfield. It is made by Bethesda. It must be on the list of nominations. I have no thoughts of my own because I'm an idiot. Star Ocean was right there.
Nobody fucking played
It doesn't
Star
matter.
Ocean.
Nobody
fucking played it.
As people who
How is
decide
it gonna
what
get
goes on the nominee list.
Connor,
Tavin,
how is it going to get on a list if nobody fucking played
You know what
it?
we are doing, Tavin? We were talking about the top 10 games. We were talking about the top 10 games. The top games of each category. Those people should have had the due diligence of knowing all of the games and deciding upon them rationally, not just defaulting to, well, we found the other. Oh, did you cut me off? Oh, I didn't.
No.
I thought you cut me off.
I'm just trying to do the thing.
See, I'm passionate. I'm angry because you had the slots reserved.
Now I cut you off. Now you're cut off.
No.
Now you got nothing.
Jesus
I'm playing.
Christ, look at you. Minister of propaganda. That's what you are. Fuck that game. Just because of how it's been treated. Star Ocean.
I'm trying to get you back, but the Streamlabs has given me problems here. You may get muted again. Phil, let's bounce over to you.
Fucked it up.
Huh?
I said Tavin fucked it up.
Indeed. Phil, let's bounce over to you. Talk to me about your honorable mentions here today.
Yeah. So kind of before I get into my honorable mentions, I kind of want to piggyback off something that Connor said, and it's that with how stacked of a year this year in games was, I just really wish this is like one of the only times I've wished we could have like top 15.
Yes.
Then
I
could,
agree.
Yeah. Because then I would have Armored Core on my list. I would have Street Fighter 6 on my list.
Yeah, I wanted to do Disney Illusion Island on this list so fucking bad, man. That game is awesome.
Yeah. But we like the number 10. We like that nice number 10, and just it's nice. Yeah. We like it. So going into my honorable mentions, my honorable mentions are thus. I have Power Wash Simulator.
Fuck yeah!
As one of my honorable mentions.
Can't escape it.
No. Connor, you just gotta try.
I know it's not
try.
bad. I know it's good,
dude,
but it didn't go away.
Easily one of the top 5 games of the last 5 years.
I know.
Easily.
I know that's what you think. You've talked about it so goddamn much. Now you infected this guy over here.
I'm just saying, like top.
I got the bug.
Probably top 3 games of this decade so far for me. Like I fucking love that game. That game's awesome.
Yeah, I know you do.
Wow. Then we also have The Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog, which was an April Fool's visual novel Sonic game, which was surprisingly really good. Like, honestly, if you're a Sonic fan, you need to play this game. It's free, first of all, and and it's just a blast. Like it's the art is really good and it's cute, and it's awesome how the narrative kind of just unfolds, and some of it is like you think that it's predictable, and then it's not predictable. Yeah, and it just kind of throws you off guard, and I thoroughly enjoyed my time with the Murder of Sonic the Hedgehog. Did a little stream of me coming home and playing it. It was nice. I liked it.
How long was it?
Then it was maybe like 2 or 3 hours.
Okay, damn.
Then my final honorable mention of this year, possibly my favorite game that we've ever covered on the Two Penny Game Club, Yakuza 0. Just awesome experience that I had, and I said it in the Game Club review, but I'm mad at myself that I have not played a Yakuza game before this. Just a phenomenal fun time. I don't know. That's just play Yakuza. I'm so excited for Infinite Wealth.
A good idea, Phil, to put games that weren't released this year. That was my headspace when I was doing my honorable mentions, but there were so many good games that we played this year.
There were so many good games this year that it's really hard. I filled my honorable mentions with games that didn't come out this year, with the exception of my first one, which is God of War Ragnarok Valhalla. Easily one of the best DLCs I've ever played in my life. It's a really, really solid roguelite. Really shows you just how good those God of War combat cycles are in this new era of games. It really is really, really well done. I think the best way I can put it is, in the main games, all the numbers and RPG elements don't really mean too much. In Valhalla, they do. And you really start paying attention to them and seeing how to improve yourself and get better as you go along. And on top of that, how it advances Kratos' story was awesome. My second honorable mention is Resident Evil 1. Resident Evil 1, the HD GameCube remake that then got remastered for PS3 and then ported to 4 and yada, 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 yada. Like, awesome level design, incredible experience for me, really gripped me emotionally, and like, just kind of had its way with me. The desired effect that they wanted in each room happened to me throughout my entire playthrough of that game. I adore that game. It's ranked way too low in our Game Club list. And then my final one is a bit of a cheat. I started out the year, when we talked about our PlayStation wrap-ups, I started off the year with Final Fantasy VII, and I've just put the Final Fantasy VII compilation as a whole, because it was the original game, its remake, its Crisis Core that sent me down this path and so forth, and then my excitement for Rebirth in next month. Yeah, I went from 2020 not knowing anything about Final Fantasy VII to now I'm just full blown mega fan of it, and I think it's awesome. And Final Fantasy VII is one of my favorite RPGs. The original was one of my favorite RPGs. The remake is as well, but the 7 just hits harder for me. Of like one of my favorites of all time, that is. And it was just a blast being able to spend the early part of my year just really diving in and just experiencing that world without the pressures of a review, or without the pressures of like getting through an old game for the sake of getting through it, which is how I initially played the first game. I was like, let me just get through it so I can know what happened and know about it. And then this time around, I took my time, man, and I really just lived in that world, and it was awesome.
It holds up well. Years later.
Well,
it does. Yeah, I mean, like, the combat system is not like it's turn-based.
You gotta do a lot of work to get into it. But once you're into it, it's good.
See, Tavin, this is the difference between me, an RPG fan, versus you, an RPG player.
Uh-huh. Oh, that's it? That's all you had?
Yeah.
All right. Gentlemen, before we get into our top threes, I want us to go ahead and have you two reveal what the top 3 Two Penny Games official 3 are. Because I think once we get into the top 3, it's going to start like kind of spoiling it a little bit.
Okay.
And so I want y'all to go ahead and list off what you guys think are the top 3. Connor, I'm going to start with you.
Starting with 3 to 1, I'm going to go.
Sure.
And these are just to make sure I'm not messing it up, since I mess things up all the time. This is the game's comprehensive best 3 games of the Two Pennies list, not anybody specific.
Well, it's accumulated by the points that we did from each of our individual lists. Yeah.
It's like an aggregate. Yeah.
Right. So I'm going to say my number 3 spot, it's going to be Legend of Zelda.
Okay.
Number 2, Spider-Man 2. because of you guys. And number 1, Baldur's Gate 3.
Okay. Phil, what are your predictions here?
I'm not as confident as I was last year. My number 3 pick is Jedi Survivor.
Okay.
Number 2 is Tears of the Kingdom, and number 1 is Baldur's Gate 3.
Interesting. Okay. Well, we're certainly going to get into it here very, very soon.
what's yours?
But before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, it's time to hop in to the big 3 for each of our individual lists. Now, I got to take this time code. It got real complicated because I had to do a cut in halfway through. So now I got to do math. There we go. All right. Who do we start these things with? Connor.
Me.
Connor, start us off, man. What is your number 3 pick?
My number 3 favorite game of this year is Hi-Fi Rush. You know, it's rhythmic combat system mixed with its nostalgia of 2000s games and cartoons led to even though it came out early in the year, out of nowhere, I constantly thought about it when I was debating about what my list was going to be positioned as. And today I filmed B-roll for Hi-Fi Rush. And the moment I jumped into that game, it's something that speaks to the combat of it, is I was instantly in it. I was kind of having to hold myself back for the sake of the filming of the B-roll to listen to the tutorials to know exactly what my character is capable of so I can get the most out of it. And looking at the skill list that I had unlocked from my past playthrough, you know, it has the best audio design of the year. Respect to Dead Space, because I understand that being amazing, and I do want to play it, but the fact that the entire world is built around accompanying the beat that the combat flows to, and you know it's entirely tied to how you press the button. In a year where there's many action games where I'm just over and over again pressing square, this is a game that actually put meaning behind it. It was I was in the flow of things. It had some sick-ass boss fights, extremely fun characters, and I'm super excited for the legacy that this game title is going to start. I think people are going to look back on it and say, this is one of the greats. And when we see, you know, the second game come out, which I think is inevitable, especially with how well this one did, I'm just giddy at the thought.
Also, to add on the accessibility of it, like you don't have to have the best rhythm to get good at the game.
Do not.
Like it does you a lot of favors. Of course, it is better if you are, you know, really good at catching a rhythm and catching the beat. But you don't necessarily have to, and I think that's really commendable for that game as well. Phil, where are you at with number 3?
My number 3 game, which when I sent it to Tavin, he was surprised that it was only number 3. Baldur's Gate 3.
Absolutely insane.
Yeah, I did not think I was going to like this game. I did not think I was. All the hype around it. I remember watching Connor play it back. It was like the early access 2020 version when I was just sitting in my apartment watching him play over Discord. And I was like, yeah, this seems like a very Connor game. I'm just going to watch him play for a little bit. And then I started my own playthrough, I think like a month and a half late into its release. And then I just wasn't getting into it. And then me and Tavin started our co-op playthrough, and I started just having a blast, like an Eldritch blast, you might say.
No, I had those.
Little D&D joke there. But yeah, I fucking adore this game. There's been so many times where I'll just be going throughout my day and I'm like, man, I could be playing Baldur's Gate right now. And yeah, it's right now, even before when we were setting up, I finished off a quest in Baldur's Gate 3 while we were finishing setup for the podcast. I'm just having a great time. I'm now, to Tavin's chagrin, I'm further in my own solo playthrough than our co-op.
Piece of shit.
Yeah, you know.
And you know, Phil, that's a reasonable grievance.
I legitimately think it's gonna kill our playthrough. Like I don't know if either of us have a whole lot of interest of continuing that playthrough. Also because we missed the romance quests because
Dude, I missed
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're gonna finish that playthrough, but I am excited eventually for when they add crossplay or when Connor stops being a bitch and gets it on PlayStation. We can play a playthrough together, all three of us.
Okay. These posers played it not in early access like I did, not when the game initially came out, only afterwards when the hype came out, the dick riders, the hype chasers. And now, all of a sudden, they want to take a game that was clearly specifically made for PC and only afterwards adapted for consoles and saying that I have to kowtow to them. Sorry that I just have a good gaming rig to be able to do it. Phil, you have one who's good too. Mainly it's Tavin.
I think I think we came after the wave of Dick Riders.
You did.
It was definitely after the wave of Dick Riders. Yeah,
I was waiting for you guys to.
Extraordinary.
I was waiting for you guys to jump on it when that happened, but you never did, and I was like, "They'll get them."
You just kept going. I didn't have a chance to jump in there.
It was
Moving
like
on.
Late November, early December is when we started.
Yeah, it was in November because it was when I was done with Alan Wake 2. Moving on to my number 3. Oh, Lord, excuse me, this beer. Moving on to my number 3 of the year. Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I think this is
called it.
Yeah, man. Listen, bro. This is an excellent evolution of where this franchise is going, and it shows to me that Respawn has bigger and bigger plans for this franchise, and they're going to keep going with it. It's very, very exciting to just kind of see them grow with it. I think this game definitely had my favorite combat system of the year, but it's definitely up there for the best. Like, it's in that conversation for sure. There's some other ones that are like, all right, probably, like, are more deserving of that title, quote unquote, this, that, and the third. But yeah, man, being able to select between, your two of your 5 favorite styles and so forth, and just the evolution that they had with level design. I think the level design in this game is actually good. In Fallen Order, it was a pretty hard miss, in my opinion. And a story that is solid. I liked the first game's story more, but it really is just the gameplay, the hard combat mechanics, the good boss fight designs, and so forth, where like the first game had 1 or 2 cool boss fights and the rest were kind of like whatever. This game, damn near every boss fight is cool. And the sense of progression that you get, the sense of, as much as I harp on Cal Kestis being a fucking wet paper towel, his journey into becoming a Jedi is fucking cool to see. It's a nice adventure for him. I think it answers to sort of the tropes of Star Wars, that you need to hit, the beats that need to be there are there. And I just wish we had done more earlier. If this story was the first game, it would lead to a really interesting second story. And then now I assume we're getting a trilogy out of this, and it's like, all right, like, I'm interested to see where it's gonna go, but like, I kind of feel like it's gonna be sort of anticlimactic by the end of it, much like how the narratives are in both of these games. And I fully believe this game would be on everybody's top 3 if it weren't for the sorry technical state that it came out in, which is unfortunate. And I hope it's better now. I haven't gone back to check any time recently, but yeah, just the frame rate drops and the muddied textures and just the visual glitches and the gameplay glitches all up and down this game was really, really disappointing. And Respawn deserves more. And I assume it's not their fault. I assume it's the EA was like, hey, get this fucking game out the door. And they did the best with what they could. And I think for the general gameplay design to rise above all of those technical issues and just fucking nail it is really shows just how good Respawn is. They really are one of the best developers in the game right now, and one of the most underrated ones by far. Star Wars Jedi Survivor is my number 3.
Yeah, one cool thing I'll say also about Star Wars Jedi Survivor is that when Fallen Order ended, while I found the game good, but it had tons and tons of problems, I had mentioned that I was really looking forward to what they do next, and I had tons of things all of a sudden, flow into my mind of, well, what could they be doing with this next game? And while none of those things actually happened, even though it did deliver on an improved experience, the subsequent third game, which will release at some point, it has the same effect on me. I'm just thinking about it, what they can do with it, because it's just a really nice growth of a game, and I hope it just goes upwards even more.
It's like the thing of like, narratively, I'm not super interested in the third title. Like, enough, I guess. Like, sure, cool, I'll see where this goes. It's really just mechanically. Like, I want to see what they add next time, like, and how they build on it next time. Like, because just the jump from 1 to 2 here is awesome,
substantial.
Moving on to our Oh my fucking no! It's good. It's good. It's good. Ladies and gentlemen, everything is fine. I keep freaking out. I keep expecting the entire system to crash underneath me, but it's doing its job. It's doing okay.
New system.
I'm a little
That's what
faith.
you're gonna have to deal with.
You know, we got some kinks to work out with here. Moving on to our number 2s. Connor, take it away for me, my friend. Where are you for your second game?
My number 2 spot is reserved for Alan Wake 2. You know, it uses the medium of video games to tell a thought-provoking narrative that just incessantly stays in my mind. It makes the use of what video games are to tell a story, where many other games, especially this year, I've kind of become dour on, where they tell that, traditional, more movie-like experience of a narrative put into video games. This one's able to do that, but also make it to where, like I said, it makes the most use out of the new technology on the PlayStation 5 to great effect, while also just being able to tell just such a weird story, but I think a cornerstone of what makes a good story that's incredibly weird and abstract is that it can just attract people the way that this game has. I played the original Alan Wake about a month. I actually completed it a couple days before Alan Wake 2 came out, and I can only imagine how much old fans of the original game must have loved this one, because even going into it just days after I finished the first one, I was met with things that I went, that's that thing. I'm like a Marvel fan. I'm pog facing at things that are, from the first game that are having an impact on this second one. Yeah, and it's able to do that while also, as they had marketed it before it came out, not require you to play the old game, but still giving you so many good reasons to play it so you can get more from it. And this game has really made me want to play all of Remedy's titles. I want to go play Control. I want to put Alan Wake on the game club that we do. They've come up as, I think, one of the studios to look out for. Clearly they've made an amazing game, but it's really just going to be interesting to see what their subsequent titles are going to do. I have thought about this in the same way you mentioned it, Tavin, when you had it at your number 10 spot, just all the time. It always sticks in my mind, and that's why I have to give it the number 2 spot.
Yeah, I think definitely Remedy has elevated to a level of where like Kojima Productions were in their prime. When you look at those early Metal Gear games, and just taking full advantage of the video game medium is awesome. And it's certainly a thing of like, man, I don't know what Remedy's gonna do next, but I'm in. I'm gonna go jump into that game.
And some last final points to make, Phil. I'd recommend you play this game, or just wait until we play it possibly on the Game Club. Either way, the other points are that even though the combat is kind of that generic survival horror type over-the-shoulder gameplay and doesn't do much to really revolutionize it, it never got stale. I never got to a point where I was just like, okay, I'm done with this gameplay, to the point I just want to be done with the game, but the narrative's carrying me through it, which even though the narrative was carrying me, I didn't find that the gameplay was hampering it in any way, like it did Final Fantasy 16 or Spider-Man 2.
On that, I disagree.
I understand, yeah. But the other thing, amazing music. It has the best individual soundtrack of any game this year.
Dude,
Seriously
when they
fantastic.
end each chapter and you just go to like a black screen and they just play a full song for you, you sit there and listen to the whole song because it's that good.
Yes, they do it. And they have their own individual short film within the game. It's impressive.
How much of that did you watch?
All of it.
Really?
I watched all of it. It was entertaining.
I watched a couple of minutes and then I was like, this doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I'm leaving. I want to get to the meat.
It's an abstract game that has an abstract short film inside the game itself.
Yeah. We haven't mentioned it yet. The We Sing moment. Went back in We Sing, the musical moment.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Went back and for the platinum, had to replay that chapter, and it's even better than I remembered it being. Like, it really is fucking good. Where are we? Twos.
Two.
We're on to Phil. We're on to Phil now.
My number 2.
Big Phil's turn. Phil, take it away.
Yeah, so my number 2 is Sea of Stars.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, Sea of Stars for me, I don't know. I just fell in love with this game. I was just so enthralled in the world that they built for us, in the characters that interact, and how like believable they are as like a group of friends, and they develop this friendship with some of the companions they pick up, and they just the oh my god, Zale and I forget the name of the blue-haired the moon girl. Probably because I just played as Zale more than her.
can't remember.
But just their dynamic and how like genuinely like nice and good they are, because they're the heroes, the protagonists of the story, and they just, I don't know, I just love their dynamic, because like sometimes when the other one disagrees, they eventually like kind of come together and they figure out a way to overcome this adversity that they put in front of them. And
Do they ever disagree?
Garl, yeah, there's some points where I mean, it's not like a full on disagreement. It's like, are we sure we want to do this or something like that?
Okay, got you. Okay. Sorry, go continue, Garl.
You're fine. But Garl is the glue that sticks the entire group together. The what do they call him? The something cook? Is it the
Warrior
It
cook.
was like a battle cook. Warrior cook.
Yeah.
Warrior cook Garl. Just a great character. Easily one of the best boys of 2023. Like
I think
the
Garl.
best boys in
I think
gaming.
Garl's my favorite character of 2023.
I mean, I don't fault you for it. Garl is just he's a ray of sunshine in the face of adversity. Just the way that he wants to make other people happy with his cooking, the way that he just genuinely wants to be there for his two friends as they take on the responsibility of being these solstice warriors and becoming these sun and moon gods, essentially. And how he just wants to stay with them and see their journey through and make sure that they are okay and that they have a shoulder to cry on or someone to lean on and someone to provide a hot meal for. Mm-hmm. It's just so genuine and nice. And I fell in love with this game. And just like with Baldur's Gate 3 and how I talked about it before, I would be at work to people that don't play games. And I would be like, dude, I've been playing Sea of Stars. And I'm just going to talk at you for like 10 minutes about it. And I don't care what you think about it. I'm just going to talk about how great this combat is, how great the character dynamics are, how fun and rewarding some of the like getting to know the combat loop and getting into it is, and it's just a phenomenal game. Shout out to what's the name of the studio? They made The Messenger too.
Yeah. Fuck, I can't remember.
You're muted, by the way.
Oh shit, yeah, I can't remember either. I just called them the Messenger Studio, which is hilarious. You got it?
I think it's
Okay,
I thought I had it for a second.
I'll say to your point of like talking to other people about it. Like, Sea of Stars is the game that like I would talk to like Sabotage Studios. Yeah. Sea of Stars is the game that I would go to work and talk to like some of my gaming coworkers or whatever, like the ones who like games and play games or whatever, and they're like, "Yeah, man, I'm like balls deep into Baldur's Gate 3 right now, man," and I'm like, yeah, I'm playing Sea of Stars, and they've never heard of that game before in their lives, and I'm like, no, you should play it. It's really fucking good. It really is that good.
It's a game I wish I had on my list. I kind of stopped playing it before I think I got to the big story beat. Garl, I love that character. He was the shining light of that when I was playing it.
You didn't get to the big beat?
I did not, no.
Oh.
And Valir is the name of the
Valir, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, that's a game I might go back to. That combat system was very fun with the timing of doing attacks in response to the when they landed to get extra damage.
It's good. I wish it was a little deeper. I wish there was more things to use in combat with that. I wish they had, I don't know, a materia system or just something to kind of spice it up even more. I liked what was there, but like, you know, each character having 5-6 attacks like max throughout the entire adventure was a little limiting. I wish there was a little bit more that I could have unlocked and done and developed or something like that. But can't deny, really well designed game. Fucking loved it. Can't wait to play it again.
Yeah.
Moving on to my number 2 of the year, which is surprisingly to me Spider-Man 2.
Okay.
While playing,
my god,
I know. While playing Spider-Man 2, I was certain it was going to be number 1, and you could probably take a guess as to what number 1 is. But yeah, I think Spider-Man 2 was a really a masterpiece of action adventure, of the action adventure genre. Like, I think it developed on the first one. It didn't, like, if it's not broke, don't fix it. And that's exactly what they did here. They just added on, improved it, and kept it going. They were very, very smart with the things that they changed. They don't get enough credit for how they changed gadgets and abilities. That keeps you in the flow of combat longer. It makes it feel like you're more, Spider-Man's the great improviser. and you feel like it with moving all your gadgets and abilities to hotkeys. I miss some of the old gadgets, but I think each one of the ones currently have their own uses. And then developing each individual Spider-Man out with their own individual abilities is awesome. The narrative choices that they make in that game are bold, especially in this superhero genre. Slight spoilers, but having a big baddie killing the other baddies is not a choice you make in comic books. In just this melodramatic genres of storytelling. You don't kill characters, and they continue to just keep making these bold choices, and I think all of them pay off. And on top of that, like, this is, in my opinion, the switchover game of, like, all right, we're in the PS5, we're in the meat of it now. Like, we've been in this sort of like crossover area of like PS4, PS5. You can get it both, like God of War Ragnarok, you can get on both. I think like Ratchet and Clank and Returnal were the first PlayStation 5 games, but this is the one where it's like, hey, if your game comes out on the last gen console after this, that's a knock against you, because that means you're not taking advantage of this technology like you should, and you've had the time to develop for it now. And yeah, man, how fast you go in this game. I was watching you while you were doing your playthrough this last month, and there were so many times where like I'd sit in and watch, and I'd be like, holy shit, you're fucking zooming, like, and you just forget about it, like, in the midst of it. Like, you go fast, like, and the way that the world keeps up with you is right there alongside you. Compare that with Jedi Survivor, where you're just kind of walking and the game is chugging. Like, like, that is impressive. Now, granted, games should come out like Spider-Man 2 more often than Jedi Survivor, but that direct comparison of those two games is so impressive. Insomniac, I think, is the best developer for the PlayStation 5 right now, and I think they're one of the best developers in the world. And they always have been, but they just continue to just keep showing out and showing up, and they never ever disappoint. Do I think they make
in particular?
Go
Sorry,
ahead.
I don't mean to cut you off, but I was saying this game in particular really, for me at least, really solidifies that S tier for Insomniac. It's also with, like, just thinking about the fact that for the PS5, you mentioned Returnal and Ratchet and Clank alongside with Spider-Man 3. Two of those three games, Spider-Man 2, two of those three games are Insomniac. So like,
literally, no, 100%.
You got to think about that, like,
and like, yes, it does recycle a lot from the first game. Yes, its runtime is not as long as even I would personally like it. I think if the game came out with New Game Plus day and date, runtime wouldn't even be a conversation, because everybody would just load right back in, because the game is that fun to play. And on top of that, what do we want from these games? Like, is there more evolution to this genre that we can get? I don't think so. I think this is the best superhero video game ever made, hands down, not even a competition. And I think this is the best example of what these games can be. Like, sure, you can criticize the sort of checklist of side activities, but I kind of want that when I'm playing Spider-Man. I want to go around and just collect random things. I want to swing around the city. I want to, find somebody in a random alley and help them put out a fire. I want to go to the fucking private school and help some gay kid, with his prom proposal. That is Spider-Man to me. Alongside the world-ending stakes, it is that important. And
that juxtaposition.
Yeah, like, I love that juxtaposition. That is Spider-Man to me. And alongside that, it's the best Kraven the Hunter story ever been told. It's the best symbiote story that's ever been told. Not my favorite Venom story, but still pretty damn good. And next to that, like, it for this universe does such a good job of establishing both Spider-Men as equals. Like, they really are both Spider-Man. Like, and I think that is something that this universe has been struggling to do. Miles Morales always felt lesser to Peter in this universe. And some of it is by design, but even by the end of Miles' own game, I didn't feel like he was right next to Peter. And now it's like, without a doubt, those two are neck and neck. Miles might even be better than Peter right now, which is awesome. Terrible suit design. I never talked to you about this. How awful is that suit design?
Terrible. I mean, the thing people brought up was its association with a Nike product.
Yeah.
And
Adidas.
It was
an
Adidas.
Adidas
That's
thing,
what it
yeah.
was. And some people had a conversation of, no, I think they just did that after the fact. It seems like it was such an obvious tie-in. It seems like that's unfortunately
was.
kind of a standard. people can do.
A tie-in, yes. I think it was. I don't think they made because it's such a narrative thing. Like it's such a moment in the game's narrative that suit comes up that like it's like, oh no, you made this suit and you thought it was going to be cool and it's not, and then you were like, and then Adidas came to you with a deal and you had to make a deal, so you made it out of this suit.
The problem is that there was a moment in the game where I changed from that suit instantly, of course, and it forces you to be in it as well later on.
Oh no, that's not true. I played during the third act. I played in it. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had switched to another one that I unlocked that was way cooler.
Yeah.
And there's one
had
of the
to
characters
switch.
comments like, I like the new suit. And I'm like, yeah, it's a good suit. I know which one you're talking about. And that sucks ass.
This
You're
one's
lying.
good.
Yes, this was actually good. So I think it kind of nulls your point in my eyes, because it's like they could have chosen any outfit and made it look they could have done the noir outfit. And they could have just they could have just said, oh, well, that's what he wanted to do. That was his style.
Can't make a shoe out of that. You know. It's really, to me, it's just the blue. That weird blue thing, that neon blue
Blues
thing that
too?
they do on it. Yeah, it's fucking weird. Like, why did you put that on there? Like,
Yeah.
Well, it's because that's the color of his new Venom powers.
Venom powers?
yeah.
Oh.
The electricity
Yeah.
stuff, they call it Venom, yeah. Yeah, I guess. It just looks weird. And also, like, you know, the homage of classic Spider-Man always having blue in the suit and so forth, like that. But, like, you know, I've seen fan recolorings of the suit, and it's badass.
Yeah.
Like, it's really just the
yeah.
color job that they did to it is what makes it so atrocious. Like,
I was
like,
gonna bring up all the fan redesigns I see on Twitter and stuff.
Yeah, I see ones that are just like full black and red, like classic Miles designs, but like the colors are in the right spots, like for that suit. And I like people hate the hair sticking out. I like the hair sticking out. Like I think it's cool. Like, you know, it's neat. So it totally gives away who you are, Miles. Like, maybe don't do that.
Yeah.
but, you know,
Actually.
but it's cool. I like it. But yeah, not a great suit, but fantastic. video
Especially since you're like the hero of Brooklyn Visions Academy. Are people gonna be like, hey, you have the same hair as
dude,
Spider-Man?
I'm gonna get like Miles is gonna help me like win my chess tournament or something, and then I'm gonna turn around and be like, Miles, I just saw you yesterday. You have the same locks. Like, what is going on here, bro?
Same
No, I don't.
lock, same build as
Yeah.
Spider-Man. Like,
You're like the same height. You don't hide your voice at all. Like, what are you doing here, man?
Yeah, right.
Like, you're clearly Spider-Man.
that's why like I'm just thinking like, I mean, maybe he could be like, no, I got this hair because of Spider-Man. I'm copying his
He's my
thing.
hero, guys. I like him a lot. Yeah, no.
But like, I don't know.
Yeah.
What are you
Moving on. Finally. Oh wow. Are we really about
The big
to-
ticket.
The big ticket item here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is time to get into our number ones. And you can probably guess them for a lot of it, but we're gonna jump over first to Phil.
Yeah, because we already know what yours two are. We know what mine is too. My number one game of the year is Legend of Zelda: Tears of the Kingdom. And Connor, I said it before, but it being, what was it, number 9?
8.
Or number 8?
Yeah, we
on
both
your
had
list?
it at 8. We both had it at 8.
Which is fucking atrocious. Like,
Hey,
this game is...
That is only, and I mean only, because the core of it is just the framework of Breath of the Wild, which is compounded by the fact that I literally just played Breath of the Wild, or I finished it.
Breath of the Wild sucks.
Shut
I
up.
understand, but
He
like,
left.
it's just, that's just not, that doesn't matter. It's new does not equal better in my eyes, you know?
It
like,
doesn't. It
I'm
doesn't.
in a way, I'm glad that they did keep the same map as Breath of the Wild. I'm glad that they did keep the same like bones. You know, I don't miss any of those old powers that were in Breath of the Wild. I'm totally fine with the new tool set they give us. I like the opening of Breath of the Wild better. Like I'm not the biggest fan of the Sky Island that they start us off in Tears of the Kingdom. I prefer the plateau, but I just think that's just because that game was an overall better introduction. Whereas if this game had started with a similar, like, kind of what Tavin said, where if it had started with Tears of the Kingdom being the first in the series, we would have had that plateau, and they kind of wanted to repeat and maybe kind of refine the plateau experience. And I think they put too many what's the word I'm looking for? They put too many. They over decorated it. Is what I'm trying to get at. They overdid it a little bit with like trying to differentiate, and also they're trying to be too different enough and also too much of the same. when it comes to designing that opening area. That's kind of what I'm getting at. They put I can't remember what the expression is, but you put too many blank on a blank. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah,
but I just they overdressed that opening. I don't know. That's what it was for me.
I feel what you mean.
But just yeah, you get it. Okay. Hopefully that comes across for the audience. But I adore this new tool set they gave us. The fuse mechanic, making every single weapon infinitely variable. You know, like you can put anything on anything. You know, you can the sheer amount of variety you can deal with certain enemies, certain puzzles. It's just I use expansion a lot, but they ramp it up to 11, like from what they did in Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild, you had some creative opportunities with some of the puzzles and some of the fights they gave you, but it's just they did so much more in Tears of the Kingdom that made it so like, oh my god, there's all the stories that you can see online where I said it before, people aren't spoiling the game, they're just showing off what they made. You know, they're showing off how they dealt with this issue, and I love that community aspect that was in this game, and how my Twitter feed was my Twitter and TikTok feed were just flooded with Tears of the Kingdom stuff when it first came out for months. And like I still see some stuff. I saw a bunch of stuff for the new year. People making gadgets for like making clocks that go from 2023 to 2024. It's just neat. I love that aspect, and it's probably like one of my favorite aspects of this game and how people talk about it. I dig it. It's for me, this is the game of 2023. I love Baldur's Gate.
An engineer's wet dream, really. Like,
yeah.
You know, Phil, to your point earlier, I understand why they made it at its bones Breath of the Wild, and they needed to. I think that allowed them to expound on those other systems that you just talked about. I was only saying that that's what I use to defend its placement on my list, whereas all these other things did new, amazing things that wowed me. This one did something that was really great, but at the core of it, when I'm running around, when I'm fighting, when it plays the exact same as a game that released back in... I'm bad at years. 2017, yeah. It just doesn't hit as much as these new brand experiences that I had with things like Baldur's Gate 3, with Resident Evil 4, and why it's at number 8 on the list.
It just does so much more than what Breath of the Wild does.
From the mechanics of the level design, from having the skies, the underneath the ground, and the grounds. Yeah, it's great. They add a lot to it, which is why it's on my list in the first place. I just think some other games were able to wow me more.
And it's to me, it's like, ever since Breath of the Wild came out, it's been in that conversation of like greatest Zelda game ever made, greatest open world game ever made, greatest video game ever made, and so forth. I think this game makes that conversation so irrelevant. Like, how can you even talk about Breath of the Wild next to this game? And I give respect for Breath of the Wild for taking the jump and taking the plunge and doing it first, but dude, Tears of the Kingdom, man, is just a different animal. Like in comparison,
I'm in the same exact boat where like I can't even see myself going back to Breath of the Wild. Like I would see myself missing all of the stuff I have now in the new one.
Yeah, it just seems like
it doesn't compare to me.
It made Breath of the Wild feel like a Breath of the Wild clone. Like and for a sequel to do that. Like, I mean, how many other games that got sequels this year have we talked about on this on our lists that were like, yeah, it was more of the same and this, that, and the third, like Spider-Man, Jedi, to a point, Resident Evil and all these things where we were like, yeah, it was more of the same. Alan Wake, more of the same, but, it did this really cool, that really cool. Like this one, it's just like, man, it just blew everything out of the water. Like, every single complaint that detractors like me have, they addressed in some way. They didn't eliminate any of those issues, but they just minimized it to the point to where it's just like, bro, like if this was what had come first, like nothing truly could have ever touched it. And they like guys like me would not be able to be like, actually it's not that good. Like, no, like Tears of the Kingdom would have come out and been like, oh no, it really is that good. Like it's that impressive.
There's also the aspect of the familiar locations from Breath of the Wild and how they change those in Tears of the Kingdom, and I just adore that like dichotomy that's there. Where like, oh, in the first game, you're in the Gerudo town, right? And it's a regular desert and it's an oasis, and in order to get in there, you have to dress like a Gerudo because they only accept females in their towns. They don't want any men in their town. And then in Tears of the Kingdom, that whole area is like desolate. It's all covered in darkness and ash, and not ash, but like dark sand, and there's no sunlight at all, and it's cold, and it's, I don't know, there's just something about the the not the give and take, like I think I said it, the dichotomy that's there between the two games, where like, oh, it's things are not great in Breath of the Wild in this area, but they could always be worse. Like the world could always get worse with the return of Ganondorf.
And to even, take it a step further, the temples. Like the temples are way better than the beasts from the first game. Like, sure, still not as dynamic as we would all probably like them to be, but for sure a great step in the right direction. Still a little copy paste, still a little like, all right, I've done this before, like type thing. But they're big, they're set piece like, and there's a lot of moments where you have to sit there and think and be like, all right, how do I get through here? And that trickles down to the shrines. Like, I think the shrines in the first game are bitch baby easy. Like they don't even feel like puzzles. They just feel like quick math equations. I can't say that for Tears of the Kingdom. Like there's that one that went viral, and it's like build a rail or build a way across these rails and so forth. Yeah. That moment will forever ring in my mind of like, oh, wow, that was really satisfying to be able to figure that out. Connor?
I like that one, and there's one that's really good where you basically put together a car, and you have to go along this track.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. There's like all these like kind of tilted platforms they have to drive across, and it's just a blast.
No, it's
fucking
also
love
a
that
blast.
game.
Connor, tell me what also is a blast.
Tavin, do we need to do this whole thing where we're acting like ours isn't the same?
Let's do it, man.
What could the number one be for you guys? What is it?
It can only be Baldur's Gate 3.
Indeed.
It is the most, or one of the most, in-depth RPGs that have ever been made. One of the greatest RPGs that has ever been made. With a great adaptation of the D&D style of game brought into the video game space perfectly, with an extremely lovable cast of characters and choices that just impact across the entire world, across all of the acts that you do. No action you take seems to be in a vacuum. It all seems to have an ultimate point, like actual life is, which when you're playing a role-playing game, I think the goal that you're trying to do is make a world where it's your character, you feel like your decisions are who you are, inputted into the world of D&D in this case, and everything just has a meaning. Every choice you do, everything you say, it's not just a random hollow things that you throw out there and no one remembers it. It's something that just continually builds upon itself. And seeing it also, the game development build upon itself from early access, I think really stresses how good of a system that is nowadays. To be able to get that fan feedback, to know what aspects of a class is overpowered or underpowered or isn't doing all that well, and what things to add to it, whether it's animations, more fluid animations, I should say, bug fixes, of course, just everything about this game is just absolutely addicting. It took the world by storm for a reason. It's because there's very few games that are like it, and that, more than anything else, makes it stand out as the best game of 2023.
Yeah, and I'm right there with you with that. Yeah, Baldur's Gate 3 is also...
You're muted.
Yeah,
I'm right there with you with that. Baldur's Gate 3 is also my... sorry, guys, I have a lot of switches that I have to focus on here. It's hard to keep track of every single one of them. Baldur's Gate 3 is my number one game of the year. It's so vast. It's so meaningful. Everything you do in that game makes you feel something, and it's impressive. It's incredibly in-depth, as you were saying, Connor, but at the same time, it's so wide. Like, it is as wide as it is deep, and you just don't get that in games. It's usually one or the other, and for it to be both is incredible. There are multiple times through my two playthroughs where I sit there and I go, I made a choice, but I could have not made that choice, and I would be in a dramatically different situation if I chose something else. What does that look like? That means there's a whole other game hidden behind a choice. I think back to Witcher 2, and how there's a moment in that game, half-ish way through where you have to make a choice and then the game branches off entirely one way or another, and you basically have to play the game twice to get the full scope of it. I cannot imagine the number of times you would have to play this game to understand its full scope and all of its different consequences and so forth. It makes previous attempts of other games and other franchises look cute next to it. Like, you think about Mass Effect, and you're talking about a trilogy of games that, like, choices from the first one will show up in the second one, will show up in the third one. Some will skip the second one and go straight to the third. Some will go from 2 to 3. And you just sit back and you go, wow, that's impressive. And I could live in those worlds all live long day. But this one, it's like, how did that become relevant 20 hours later? I don't understand how you track that. Their narrative boards must look insane over there at Larian Studios. Like, the way that they have to track each individual plot thread is incredible. On top of the fact that, like, even though, yeah, turn-based, whatever, and super complicated gameplay and combat systems in it, when you get your hand around it, when you finally grasp it and get control of its systems and have the game work in the ways that you want to, it becomes almost as freeing as Tears of the Kingdom, like in your ability to be creative with choices and gameplay mechanics and so forth. So many times where I can recount in me and Phil's playthrough where, like, we would go into a battle, get our asses kicked, reload before the battle, and then plan it out and say, okay, I'll do this, that, and the third. You do this, that, and the third. All right, great. We're going again. And we would go in and it would work like clockwork. Or we would go in, it wouldn't work, and we'd figure out something else on the fly, and that would work. Or we would go in and instead of combat starting, for whatever reason, dialogue would start. And instead of having to fight 12 dudes, I was able to just talk them into killing each other, and they all died. Like, and we didn't have to use a single combat move. Like, that is design and choice and player freedom that you do not see in the industry. People keep talking about this game like it's a landmark game. Like, oh man, we're going to see so many more games like this after this. No, we're not. Enjoy this while we have it. Enjoy it while it's fresh. Enjoy it while it's new, because you can't get games like this every year. It's impossible. You can't get games like this every 5 years. It's impossible. There's not enough money. There's not enough time. There's not enough care from higher ups above the artists. Like this is in a year where we really saw the corporate greed hit this industry. For a game like this to come out and show us what it means to be a full package video game is insane. Great multiplayer systems, great single-player systems, no microtransactions, no battle passes, no season pass, no DLC, like a planned thing. From launch to now, they've added thousands of lines of dialogue. You don't get that in games. That doesn't happen. So we really just all need to cherish this moment now, because who knows if or when we will ever see it again. My bet is in another 10 years when Larian does another one.
And you see, to Larian, since you brought them up, I'm sorry if I'm misrepresenting something. This is just what I've heard without extensive research. But it was a make or break game for them with how much they put behind it. I mean, you mentioned 1,000 new lines of dialogue. That's new. Yeah. Standard, like, my God, every single person seems to have just, lines upon lines upon lines of dialogue, and impactful dialogue very often. And as you said, so much layoffs happened this year. Mm-hmm. It's a perfect example that even though we might love video games, and the same thing goes for film, it goes for music, any other art form, there is always a profit motive behind it, as there needs to be. But pretty commonly, we see that take the front seat and the artistic expression take the back seat. And this is one of those rare cases where they did just say, we're going to worry about finances later. We're going to hinge it all upon the art being as good as it can be and drawing people in. And I think that's one of the reasons why it's been able to have such a great impact, because it was a gamble, but it wasn't a gamble, at least from what we know now. Who knows what would have happened if it did fail? That was reliant on, the executive, they were just taking the gamble here. They weren't taking any gamble, and they just were looking to make money. Everybody across Larian seemed to be just going all in on this, make or break it, and they made it. And I hope that we're not going to see... right? Very apt. I'm going to start
my little
talking
meme.
about dead coworkers.
I had to
and
do a
dead
quick
people.
meme.
Yeah.
Oh, that was
Yeah.
fucking funny.
That was so fucked up, dude.
You know, it's just
For audio listeners, I did the please wrap it up meme
Yeah.
from the
from
Game Awards.
Game Awards.
I'm so glad we were on the right camera angle for that.
Yeah, I know. Anything you want to say about this, Phil? Because I know, of course, you have.
No,
high regards
no,
for
I
it.
talked about Baldur's Gate. I said my piece. I fucking love this game.
Tavin, do you have any liquor left? Alcohol left?
Some Deep Eddie's lemon.
Same here.
I do.
Drink to Baldur's Gate 3.
Hey.
Huh?
Prost.
Oh, I see what you're saying. There we
Yeah.
go.
I was saving it for that.
Congratulations, Larian. You did it. You made a great game. Ladies and gentlemen, it is now time to unveil the official list of the Two Penny Games top 10 games of the year and the official Two Penny Games game of the year. Gentlemen, really quickly, I had you write it down. I had you say it before we got into those top three. But now that we're past those top three, refresh me. What were your predictions for the top three games of the year? Connor, go.
3-1. Legend of Zelda. Spider-Man 2. Baldur's Gate 3, number 1.
Phil?
I said Jedi Survivor, Tears of the Kingdom, Baldur's Gate 3.
Ladies and gentlemen, between the three of us, 14 games were nominated for, or were in our top 10 lists. 14 purely original games, that is. And only 2 are not making it on the official top 10 because of ties. Number 12 is Pikmin with 1 vote, 1 point. Again, remember, we set up point values to each position on the list. Number 1 is worth 10 points. Number 10 is worth 1 point, and everything in between goes as follows. So number 12 is Pikmin with 1 point. Number 11, Lies of P with 2 points. Number 10, right out of the gate, we're starting with a tie. Warhammer. What is the full name of that game?
40K Rogue Trader.
40K Rogue Trader, and Super Mario Brothers Wonder with 6 points each.
Hell yeah.
Surprising that Mario was that low to me. I was expecting
That
it
low,
to be,
yeah.
to be higher.
You're welcome.
That is a shocker. Yeah.
Number 9, we have Armored Core 6 tied with Final Fantasy 16 at 7 points each. Again, surprising. Armored Core landed on all 3 of our lists.
You did.
No, I did not land on my list.
Oh, not on
Oh,
yours.
that's
Not on
right.
yours.
That's
Not on
why.
yours.
That's
Okay.
I was saying I was ashamed I had to kick it off.
Yeah. The next 5 positions are all 1 point differentials from each other.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. The last place was too. So no, from 10. I'm sorry. I'm totally misreading my notes here. From 10 all the way to number 4 is a 1 point differential for each of these games. That should tell you just how fucking great this year is. There's no jumps like that. So number 8 is the Dead Space remake with 9 points. Number 7, Alan Wake 2 with 10 points. Number 6, Hi-Fi Rush, 11 points. Number 5, Resident Evil 4 with 12 points. Number 4, Sea of Stars, 13 points.
Let's
Worked its way
go.
Here we go. Which leads us to number 3, which is our first real big jump in points. Not that big, actually. And it's a tie, boys. We got 4 games in our top 3 here.
Damn.
At number 3, we have The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom,
Okay.
tied with Spider-Man 2 at 16 points
Wow.
apiece. Number 2 is Star Wars Jedi Survivor, 21 points. It's on all 3 of our lists.
Yeah, it
It was
is.
fairly high on all 3 of our lists, so kind of makes sense.
Consistency.
Mine was only like number 8 or 7 or something like that.
Good enough.
There you go. It did what it needed to do. And then number 1, to nobody's surprise, we all guessed it. Our official game of the year is Baldur's Gate 3 with 28 points. Congratulations, Larian Studios. Congratulations to the gamers. Congratulations to all the devs who worked so hard to put out so many great games. And a salute to all of those who maybe lost their lives, who may have lost their jobs, or lost time or money or family because they were busy putting their heart, sweat, blood, tears into these games that we devour within a weekend. Without this, we would not be three idiots spending nearly 2 hours talking about video games every week. And there's nothing better in this world than a great game. And it's by far my favorite medium to experience art in. And I'm so excited for 2024 to see what it has in store for us. There's going to be some more bangers to come. And hopefully by the time we come back from break in 2025, we'll have just as an amazing list as we did this year, hopefully with less layoffs, although I doubt it, unfortunately. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, I want to go ahead and thank you for listening along with us. You know, this is quite a long-winded one whenever we do these top 10 lists of any kind, whether they're top 10s of the year or top 10s of all time. We usually go pretty long on that. This year was no different, and we just want to thank you all so much for watching and listening and following us on all of the, channels and social medias that you can find in the description, all that nonsense that YouTube makes us do. This was a good year for us.
Yeah.
We grew more in this 1 year than we did in the last 2 combined. And though we're still very, very small, we still have a very long road ahead of us. In many ways, this year was very validating and it was hard to get through sometimes just because, we're 3 dudes who do this in our spare time, no money. I actually lose money month to month doing this. And, it's always a blast. So I'm excited to see what 24 has, in store for us and beyond. So Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining me on this journey. Connor, thank you for starting this channel off with me. Phil, thank you for doing our first gameplay stuff and adding a good amount of fun to the channel outside of me and Connor's boring ass industry talk. And until next time, ladies and gentlemen, have a great time. And gentlemen, say goodbye to the people.
Tell us how our new setup is.